The ship moved through space like a small fish swimming toward a shark. Inside, Cole looked out the window at the massive space station ahead. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The station was shaped like a giant ring, and it glowed with lights of every color. Ships from 100 different worlds flew around it like insects around a lamp. Was 43 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too much. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. No medals, no decorations, just a small patch on his shoulder that showed the blue and green of his home planet. Beside him stood Lieutenant Lisa. She was younger, maybe 30, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that never stopped moving. Her hand rested near the weapon on her hip, even though she knew it would be useless where they were going. "How many species will be there?" Lisa asked. 47 replied, "Maybe more." And they all answered to her. Nodded slowly. Every single one. The Queen has ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. No one has ever said no to her and lived to talk about it. Lisa let out a long breath. Then why are we here? Why did she ask for humans? That was the question that had kept awake for the past week. Humanity was new to space. They had only been traveling between stars for about 300 years. Compared to the ancient empires out here, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. They had been conquering worlds before humans had discovered fire. "She wants something from us," said. "I just don't know what yet." Their ship docked at the station. The airlock opened with a hiss and stepped out into a corridor that was clearly not built for humans. The ceiling was too high. The air smelled wrong, like metal and something sweet that made his stomach turn. The gravity was a little too heavy, making each step feel like he was carrying extra weight. Two creatures waited for them. They were soldiers and had to stop himself from stepping backward when he saw them. They were insects, but not like any insect from Earth. They stood on two thick legs and they were at least 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in black armor that looked like it had grown from their skin. They had 4 arms, and each arm ended in claws that could cut through steel. Their heads were the worst part. They had huge eyes that reflected the light like mirrors, and mouths full of sharp parts that clicked and moved constantly. The soldiers said nothing. They simply turned and began walking, expecting the humans to follow. And Lisa walked behind them through corridor after corridor. They passed windows that looked out into huge chambers. In one, saw hundreds of workers building something massive. In another, he saw rows and rows of eggs, each one as big as a car. "A breeding chamber," Lisa whispered. "I read about these. She can produce 1,000,000 soldiers in a single cycle." Felt cold. This was what they were up against. Not just a queen, but an entire civilization built for war and conquest. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They simply took what they wanted, and they had wanted a lot over the past 10,000 years. Finally, they reached the council chamber. It was enormous. The room could have held a small city inside it. The walls curved upward and disappeared into darkness far above. Floating platforms held delegates from dozens of species, each one stranger than the last. Saw the creatures made of living gel that flowed and shifted constantly. He saw the tall warriors with crested heads and scales like armor. He saw beings of light and beings of shadow and things he could not even describe. And at the far end of the chamber, on a throne made of something that looked like bone, sat the queen. She was massive. Even from a distance, could tell she was larger than any creature he had ever seen. Her body was like the soldiers, but stretched and expanded into something more terrible. Her wings were folded behind her back, and they looked like they could block out the sun. Her eyes, dozens of them, all turned to look at the humans as they entered. The chamber fell silent. Walked to the platform that had been assigned to the human delegation. It was small and placed low, forcing him to look up at almost everyone else. He understood the message. Humans were the smallest, the weakest, the least important. Lisa stood beside him, her face pale but determined. "Welcome to the gathering," a voice boomed through the chamber. It came from the queen herself, translated into a language could understand. "All species have come to hear my words. All will listen. All will obey." Looked around at the other delegates. Most of them were already lowering their heads, their bodies, whatever they had that showed submission. The had flattened itself completely. Despite their fierce appearance, had bent their proud necks. Only the humans remained standing straight. The queen noticed, felt her attention shift to him like a weight pressing down on his chest. Her voice came again, and this time it was directed at him alone. "The human, you are new to my domain. Perhaps you do not understand how things work here." Said nothing. He just stood there, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let me explain," the queen continued. "I have called this gathering because my swarm is hungry. My children need new worlds to grow, and I have decided that the outer systems of your territory will serve that purpose nicely." A murmur ran through the chamber. The other delegates looked at the humans with something that might have been pity. "You will give me those worlds," the queen said. "You will bow before me as the others have done, and in return I will allow the rest of your species to live. For now." Lisa's hand tightened on her weapon. Could feel her anger, her fear, her desire to do something, anything. He put a hand on her arm to calm her. Admiral Hart had given them clear orders before they left Earth. Observe, report, do not provoke. Humanity was not ready for a war with they did not have enough ships. They did not have strong enough weapons. If war came, millions would die before it even really began. Knew all of this. He had read the reports. He had seen the numbers. He understood that the smart thing to do was to bow, to give the queen what she wanted, to buy time for humanity to grow stronger. But as he stood there, looking up at the ancient monster on her throne of bone, he thought about his daughter Amy. She was 12 years old, living on a colony called New Portland. She liked to read books about Earth's history. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up. If he bowed now, what kind of future was he giving her? A future where humans lived on their knees, hoping that the queen would not decide to take more. No. Cole took a deep breath. And he stepped forward. The moment stepped forward, everything in the chamber changed. The air itself seemed to grow thick. The other delegates stopped moving. Even the constant clicking of the guards went silent. Every eye, every sensor, every form of awareness in that massive room turned to focus on the small human who had just done something unthinkable. No one approached the queen without permission. No one. Lisa grabbed arm from behind. "Sir, what are you doing?" she whispered. Her voice was tight with fear. Did not stop. He took another step, then another. The queen's many eyes narrowed. Her massive body shifted on the throne of bone. The clicking started again, but this time it was different. It was the sound of hundreds of soldiers raising their weapons. "The small creature moves," the queen said. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "Does it wish to die so quickly?" Stopped walking. He was now standing alone in the center of the chamber floor, far from the safety of his platform. He could feel the heat of targeting lasers on his back. He could hear the breath of 100 different species waiting to see what would happen next. "No, Your Majesty," said. His voice was steady, even though his heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break his ribs. "I do not wish to die, but I also do not wish to kneel." A sound went through the chamber. It was hard to describe. Some species gasped. Others made noises that had no human translation. One of the warriors actually looked up from his submissive bow, his eyes wide with something that might have been shock or respect. The queen leaned forward. Her body made sounds like cracking wood as she moved. Up close, could see the details he had missed before. Her armor was not just black. It was covered in small marks, thousands of them, trophies, he realized. Each mark was a species she had destroyed. "You do not wish to kneel," the queen repeated. "How interesting. Tell me, little human, do you understand what you are doing? Do you know what happens to those who stand before me? I have heard stories, said. Stories? The queen made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was horrible, like rocks grinding together. Yes, I suppose there are stories. The tell stories of my coming. The sing songs of their defeat. Every species in this chamber has stories about the... She rose from her throne. The movement was slow, but it was terrifying. She just kept going up and up, her body unfolding like some nightmare machine. When she was fully standing, she was nearly 30 feet tall. Her wings spread out behind her, blocking the light from half the chamber. Her shadow fell over like a dark blanket. Your stories, the queen continued, are nothing compared to the truth. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have eaten worlds. I have fed on the flesh of kings and emperors. My children number in the billions, and they all share one hunger, one purpose, one will. She took a step toward, the floor shook. And that will is mine. Did not move, he did not run, he did not bow. He just stood there, looking up at the monster above him. Back on the human platform, Lisa was frozen. Her hand was on her weapon, but she knew it was useless. The gun could not hurt the queen. It probably could not even scratch her armor. And even if it could, they were surrounded by thousands of soldiers. But she could not just stand there and watch die. She took a step forward. No, said without turning around. Stay there, Lisa. That is an order. Lisa stopped. Her whole body was shaking. Sir, please, this is not what we were sent here to do, Admiral Hart said. I know what the Admiral said. Finally looked back at her. His eyes were calm, sad but calm. But some things matter more than orders. He turned back to face the queen. Your Majesty, he said, I have a question for you. The queen tilted her massive head. The gesture was almost human, and that made it even more unsettling. A question. The small creature wishes to ask me a question. No one has asked me a question in 500 years. Then you are overdue, said. Another sound went through the chamber. This one was different. Some of the delegates were making noises that sounded almost like laughter, though they quickly stopped when the queen's attention swept over them. Ask, the queen commanded, and then I will decide whether to kill you quickly or slowly. Nodded as if this was a fair deal. My question is this. In all your 3,000 years, in all your conquests, have you ever faced a species that simply refused to surrender? Not because they thought they could win, but because they could not accept losing. The queen was silent for a moment. Her many eyes blinked in a pattern that could not read. All species fight at first, she finally said. They all believe they are special. They all believe their weapons or their technology or their gods will save them. And then they learn the truth. They learn that nothing can save them. And then they break. But have any of them ever refused to break? Asked. Have any of them kept fighting even after it was clear they had lost? Even after there was no hope at all? The queen's eyes narrowed again. Such species do not survive long enough to matter. They are removed from the universe. Their worlds are consumed. Their names are forgotten. And yet you remember them, said quietly. You remember the ones who refuse to break. I can see it in your eyes. They trouble you, don't they? Even after all this time. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the soldiers had stopped clicking. Every being present could feel that something important was happening, even if they did not understand exactly what. The queen stared down at for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She sat back down on her throne. You are clever for such a small thing, she said. Yes, there have been a few species that would not accept reality. They fought us in ways that made no sense. They destroyed their own worlds rather than let us take them. They sent their children into battle knowing they would die. They were irrational, wasteful, foolish. And were they defeated? Asked. Of course they were defeated. I am still here, am I not? They are still here. Those species are dust and memory. Smiled, it was a small smile, but it was real. But it cost you, didn't it? Those victories were not easy. Those species may have died, but they made you pay for every inch. They made you bleed. The queen's body tensed. Her wings fluttered with a sound like distant thunder. You dare to speak to me of cost. You dare to suggest that any species has ever truly hurt the... I dare, said, because I come from such a species, and I am here to tell you that if you move against humanity, you will face the same kind of war. The kind that never really ends. The kind that costs you more than you can imagine. He stepped forward again, just one more step, but it was enough. We are humans, he said, and we do not break. The queen looked down at him. Her eyes showed nothing. Her body was perfectly still. But somewhere deep inside her ancient mind, something stirred, something she had not felt in a very long time. It was the beginning of doubt. The queen stared at for a long time. The chamber remained silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was lower now, less like a command and more like a conversation. You say you do not break. You say you are different, but every species says this. Every species believes they are special. Why should I believe that humans are any different from the rest? Had been waiting for this question. He had thought about it during the long journey to this station. He had turned it over in his mind while he lay awake in his small cabin, staring at the ceiling and wondering if he would ever see his daughter again. Because I can show you, he said. I can tell you our history, and then you can judge for yourself. The queen's wings folded more tightly against her back. It was a gesture that could not read, but he thought it might mean she was interested. Speak, then. Tell me your history. Amuse me. Turned slightly so he could address both the queen and the gathered delegates. He was aware that every being in this chamber was watching him, some with fear, some with curiosity, some with the kind of hunger that came from wanting to see something terrible happen to someone else. Humanity began on a single world, said, a small blue planet called Earth. For most of our history, we were not special. We were just animals trying to survive. We were weak. We were slow. We did not have claws or armor or wings. He paused, but we had one thing that set us apart. We had the ability to refuse to give up, even when we should have, even when it made no sense. The queen made a small sound. It might have been doubt. It might have been impatience. Continued. About 200 years ago, after we had spread to the stars, we faced something that should have ended us. It was not an invasion. It was not a war. It was a sickness. He could feel Lisa's eyes on his back. She knew this story. Every human knew it. It was taught in schools. It was remembered in ceremonies. It was the moment that had nearly killed humanity and the moment that had made them stronger. We called it the Gray Death, said. It was a disease that came from a distant world. We do not know if it was natural or if someone made it. It does not matter. What matters is what it did. He took a breath. The Gray Death killed billions of people in the first year. Whole colonies went silent. Ships full of corpses drifted between the stars. Our doctors did not know how to stop it. Our scientists could not find a cure. Every day, more people died. Every day, the human species got smaller. The chamber was completely quiet. Even the queen seemed to be listening. The projections said we would be gone within 20 years, continued. Every computer model, every expert analysis, every prediction said the same thing. Humanity would be extinct before the century ended. We were finished. He let that word hang in the air for a moment. But we did not accept it, he said. We refused to believe that we were finished. Doctors worked until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then they got up and kept working. Scientists shared their research with people who had been their enemies just months before. Political boundaries that had divided us for generations disappeared overnight. His voice grew stronger. And ordinary people, people with no special training or abilities, volunteered for experimental treatments. They knew the treatments would probably kill them. They volunteered anyway. They said that if their deaths could help find a cure, then their deaths would have meaning. He looked up at the queen. Do you understand what I am telling you? Millions of people chose to die so that others might live. They did not run. They did not hide. They walked into death with their eyes open because they believed in something bigger than themselves. The queen was silent. Her many eyes watched with an expression he could not read. "We found a cure," said. "It took 15 years. It cost us half our population, but we found it. And when it was over, when the last patient was healed and the last ship was cleaned, do you know what we did?" He waited. The queen did not answer, so he continued. "We pushed further into space. We built new colonies on worlds that should have been impossible to live on, worlds with too much radiation, worlds with poisonous air, worlds with gravity that should have crushed our bones. We made those worlds our homes anyway." Lisa stepped forward slightly. She could not help herself. "My grandmother was one of them," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. "She helped settle a world called Seven. The radiation there was so strong that the first generation of settlers all developed cancer, all of them, but they stayed. They built underground cities. They developed new medicines. They found ways to survive." She looked up at the queen. "My grandmother lived to be 93 years old. She saw her great born on that world, the world that was supposed to kill her." Nodded. "This is what humans do. We take the impossible and we make it possible, not because we are stronger than anyone else, not because we are smarter, but because we refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible." The queen finally spoke. Her voice was different now, still powerful but with something else underneath, something that sounded almost like respect. "You have suffered," she said. "I will admit that your species has known pain, but suffering does not make you dangerous. Many species have suffered under my rule. Their suffering did not save them." "That is true," agreed. "Suffering alone does not make us dangerous, but suffering combined with another trait does." "And what trait is that?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had learned hard truths about the universe. "Stubbornness," he said. "We are the most stubborn species in the galaxy. When we decide to do something, we do it. No matter how long it takes, no matter how many times we fail, no matter how many of us die along the way." He gestured around the chamber. "Look at the species gathered here. They are all older than us. They are all more advanced. They have technologies we cannot even understand. But when you threatened them, they bowed. They accepted your power. They made the rational choice." His voice hardened. "Humans are not good at making the rational choice. We are good at making the stubborn choice. The choice that says we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. The choice that says we will keep fighting even when fighting makes no sense." The queen leaned forward. Her massive form creaked and clicked as she moved. "You speak of dying on your feet," she said. "That can be arranged. One word from me, and every human in this chamber will be dead. One order to my fleet, and every human colony will burn. Your stubbornness means nothing against my power." Did not back down. "You are right. You could kill us all. You could burn our worlds. You could wipe humanity from the universe." He paused. "But you would not kill all of us. Some would survive. Some always survive. And those survivors would remember. They would teach their children to remember. And those children would grow up with one purpose, to make you pay for what you did." He stepped forward one more time. He was now close enough to touch the base of the queen's throne. "They would come for you," said softly. "Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not for 100 years, but they would come, and they would never stop coming. That is the human way. That is what stubbornness really means." The queen looked down at him. Her eyes showed nothing. But her silence spoke volumes. The silence in the chamber stretched on, stood at the base of the throne, looking up at the massive form of the queen. He could feel the weight of her attention pressing down on him like a physical force. He could sense the thousands of soldiers around him, waiting for the order to strike. But the order did not come. Instead, the queen spoke. Her voice had changed again. It was quieter now, more thoughtful. You speak of what humans would do if I destroyed your species, but this is just talk. Words are easy, threats are cheap. What proof do you have that humans are as stubborn as you claim? Had been waiting for this moment. He reached into his uniform pocket. Every soldier in the chamber raised their weapons. The clicking sound was deafening. Lisa shouted something behind him but could not hear her over the noise. He pulled out a small device. It was flat and square, about the size of his palm, just a data chip. "This is not a weapon," he said loudly, holding up the chip so everyone could see it. "It is a record, a piece of history. May I show it to the chamber?" The queen waved one of her massive claws. The soldiers lowered their weapons, though they did not relax. "Show me this history," she commanded. "But know that if this is some kind of trick, your death will be slow." Nodded, he pressed a button on the chip, and a holographic display flickered to life above his hand. Images began to form in the air. "This happened on ours," said, "long before we ever reached the stars. It was a conflict we call the Pacific War." The images showed a map. It was Earth, but focused on a large ocean with islands scattered across it. Two areas were highlighted in different colors. "One nation attacked another without warning," explained. "They believed that if they struck hard and fast, their enemy would surrender. They thought that a quick victory was possible." The images changed. Now they showed ships on fire, planes falling from the sky, buildings destroyed, people running through streets filled with smoke. "The attack worked," continued. "The defending nation lost many ships and many soldiers in a single day. By every measure, they should have surrendered. Their fleet was crippled. Their people were shocked. Their leaders did not know what to do." He paused. The chamber was silent, watching the images float in the air. But they did not surrender. Instead, something strange happened. The attack made them angry, not the kind of anger that burns hot and then fades, the kind of anger that becomes cold, the kind of anger that becomes purpose. New images appeared, factories working day and night, ships being built at incredible speed, soldiers training by the thousands. Within months, the attacked nation had rebuilt its fleet. Within a year, they were pushing back. They crossed an entire ocean. They fought for islands that were little more than rocks and sand. They lost thousands of soldiers for each piece of ground they took. Looked up at the queen, and they did not stop. They could not stop. The attack had done something to them. It had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. The images showed more battles, ships firing at each other, soldiers fighting in jungles, cities burning. "The war lasted 4 years," said. "The defending nation lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Their enemy lost even more, but the defenders kept coming. Every time they were pushed back, they pushed forward again. Every time their enemy thought the war was over, they proved that it was not." He pressed another button on the chip. The images changed to show something new, a single aircraft flying high above the clouds. "And then they did something that changed everything," said quietly. "Their scientists had been working on a secret project, a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen, a weapon that could crack atoms themselves." The image showed a flash of light, then a cloud rising into the sky, shaped like a giant mushroom. "They used this weapon twice," said. "2 cities were destroyed in an instant. Hundreds of thousands of people died. The war ended." The queen's eyes narrowed. "So humans are capable of great destruction. This does not surprise me. Many species can destroy." "That is not the point of the story," said. He pressed the chip again. New images appeared, cities being rebuilt, people working together, former enemies shaking hands. After the war ended, the attacked nation did something that no one expected. They did not crush their enemy. They did not enslave them. They did not take revenge. He let the images speak for themselves, schools being built, factories running peacefully, children playing in parks. "They helped their enemy rebuild," said. "They turned their greatest foe into one of their closest allies. Within a generation, the two nations were trading partners. Within 2 generations, they were friends. He turned off the chip. The images faded. That is what humans do, said. We fight with everything we have. We never give up. We will burn the universe down if we have to. But when the fighting is over, we do not hold onto hatred. We build, we grow, we move forward. He looked up at the Queen. This is what you would face if you attacked humanity. Not a quick war, not a clean victory. You would face 4 years of hell, maybe 40 years, maybe 400, however long it took. And even if you won, you would not win, because the survivors would remember, and eventually they would come back. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Her massive body was still. Her eyes showed nothing. Then she spoke. You are asking me to believe that your species would fight a war they know they cannot win, that they would sacrifice millions of lives for nothing but pride. Not pride, said. Principle, there is a difference. Explain this difference. Thought for a moment. Pride is about what others think of you. Principle is about what you think of yourself. A proud species would fight to look strong. A species with principles would fight because they believe some things are worth dying for, even if no one is watching. He gestured around the chamber. Every species here has bowed to you because they are proud. They do not want to look weak, but in their hearts they have already surrendered. They have already decided that their lives are more important than their principles. His voice grew firm. Humans are not like that. We have principles that we will not abandon, no matter the cost. We believe that freedom is worth dying for. We believe that our children deserve a better future than slavery. We believe that some things are more important than survival. The Queen made a sound. It was low and rumbling, almost like distant thunder. You speak of principles, but principles do not stop weapons. Principles do not heal wounds. Principles do not bring back the dead. No, agreed. But principles give meaning to the dead. They make their sacrifice worthwhile, and that meaning gives the living the strength to keep fighting. He stepped back from the throne. His legs were tired. His heart was pounding, but he was not finished. Your Majesty, he said, I am not asking you to fear humanity. I am asking you to respect us. We are a young species. We are a small species, but we are a species that will never stop fighting for what we believe in. He looked her directly in the eyes, all of them. If you want peace with humanity, we will give you peace. We will trade with you. We will learn from you. We will grow alongside you, but if you want war. He let the sentence hang in the air. If you want war, you will have it, and you will never forget it. The Queen stared down at him. Her massive form was perfectly still. And for the first time in 3,000 years, she did not know what to say. The chamber remained frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the machines that kept the massive station running. Stood before the throne, his words still hanging in the air. He had said everything he could say. Now it was up to the Queen. She stared down at him for what felt like hours. Her many eyes blinked slowly, one after another, in a pattern that seemed to have some meaning could not understand. Her massive claws rested on the arms of her throne, perfectly still. Finally she moved. It was a small movement, just a slight tilt of her head, but it sent a ripple of reaction through the chamber. The soldiers shifted. The delegates held their breath. Even the air seemed to grow thick with tension. You are either very brave or very foolish, the Queen said. Allowed himself a small smile. My people have been asking that question about themselves for a very long time. We still do not have an answer. The Queen made that grinding sound again. This time was almost certain it was laughter, not cruel laughter, something closer to genuine amusement. I have lived for 3,000 years, she said. I have met millions of creatures from thousands of species, kings and emperors, warriors and scholars, beings of pure energy and beings of living stone, but I do not think I have ever met anything quite like you, Cole. Felt a chill run down his spine. She knew his name. He had never told her his name. The Queen saw his reaction. "Yes, I know who you are. I know everything about you. I know about your daughter Amy on New Portland. I know about your wife who died in the plague. I know about the medal you refused to accept after you saved your colony from raiders. I know that you have not slept properly in 3 weeks because you were afraid of what would happen here today." She leaned forward slightly. "I know all of this because I have studied your species ever since you first reached the stars. You interested me. Such small creatures, so weak, so short-lived. And yet you kept spreading. You kept building. You kept surviving things that should have killed you." Her voice grew softer. "I have been watching you, Cole. Watching and waiting to see what kind of species humanity truly is. And now I know." Felt Lisa move up beside him. She was trembling slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "What are you going to do?" The Queen looked at her. Then she looked back at. Then she looked out at the gathered delegates, all of them watching with fear and fascination. "I am going to do something I have not done in a very long time," she said. She rose from her throne again, but this time the movement was different. It was not threatening. It was almost ceremonial. "I am going to change my mind." A wave of shock went through the chamber. The delegates looked at each other in disbelief. Some of them made sounds that had no translation. One of the ambassadors actually lost control of its form and melted into a puddle before pulling itself back together. The Queen ignored them all. She was focused entirely on. "They will not move against human territory," she announced. "The outer colonies you were so worried about will remain yours. My swarm will find other worlds to feed upon." Felt his knees go weak. He had not truly believed this would work. He had hoped, yes. He had prepared his arguments and told himself that there was a chance, but deep down he had expected to die here today. "Why?" he asked. His voice came out as a whisper. The Queen considered the question. "Because you were right. I do remember the species that refused to break. I remember the wars that cost me more than they should have. I remember the soldiers I lost, the children who never hatched, the resources that were wasted fighting enemies who simply would not accept defeat." She looked down at her claws. For a moment she seemed almost tired. "Those species are gone now. I destroyed them all, but their ghosts still follow me. Sometimes, late in the night cycle, I think about what might have happened if I had simply left them alone, if I had found some way to live alongside them instead of consuming them." She looked back at. "I see that same fire in your eyes, the same refusal to bend, and I find that I am tired of creating ghosts." The chamber was completely silent. "This does not mean I like humans," the Queen continued. "This does not mean I trust you. This does not mean I will not change my mind again someday. But for now, the inhumanity will have peace." She sat back down on her throne. The movement signaled that the audience was over. "Go home, Cole. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that the Queen looked at humanity and decided they were more trouble than they were worth." She made that grinding laugh sound again. "I suspect they will find this amusing." Bowed slightly, not a bow of submission but a bow of respect, one equal to another. Then he turned and walked back to Lisa. She was crying. She did not seem to realize it, but tears were running down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "We did not do anything," said quietly. "We just reminded her what humans are made of." They walked together toward the exit. As they passed, the other delegates watched them with new eyes. The ambassador reached out with a pseudopod, not to touch them but to acknowledge them. The warrior lifted his crested head and made a gesture that recognized as a sign of respect among their kind. But it was the Queen who had the last word. "Cole," she called out, just as he reached the door. He turned back. "Remember what I said. I may change my mind someday. Your species should use this peace wisely. Grow stronger, build better ships, develop new weapons, because if we ever do face each other in war..." She let the sentence hang. Smiled. It was the same smile his ancestors had worn on beaches and in jungles and in cities that had been reduced to rubble. The smile of someone who had faced the worst and survived. "If we ever face each other in war," he said, "you will wish you had killed me today." The Queen nodded slowly. "Yes, I believe I would." And Lisa left the chamber. Behind them, the Queen sat on her throne of bone and thought about what she had just done. She had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. She had never backed down from a fight. She had never shown mercy to an enemy. She had never let fear guide her decisions. But as she thought about the small human who had stood before her without flinching, she realized that this was not fear she was feeling. It was something else, something she had not felt since she was young, when the universe was still full of mysteries and wonders. It was respect. And underneath the respect, there was something even more surprising. It was hope. Hope that perhaps there was a species out there that could stand beside her as equals. A species that would not bow or break or run. A species that could look into the void and refuse to look away. The humans had stepped forward, and the Queen found herself wondering what they would do next. On the human ship, racing back toward Earth, Cole sat alone in his cabin. He was holding a picture of his daughter Amy. She was smiling in the picture, holding up a book she had just finished reading. He had done it. He had saved her future. He had given humanity a chance. But he knew that this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The Queen had been right about one thing. Someday the might come. Someday there might be a war that could not be avoided. Looked out the window at the stars rushing past. "We will be ready," he said quietly. "Whatever comes, we will be ready." And somewhere far behind him, in a chamber filled with beings from 100 different worlds, the story of what had happened was already spreading. The story of the human who stepped forward. The story that changed everything. The end.